WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. It is good to be back in the cockpit and certainly watching preseason football, complaining about the Orioles and how they stink, and certainly get ready maybe for some college football and some hockey as well. But we've had a tragedy around here, certainly for our community and for the College Park community, and I don't know where this is all going to end. It's the first time I've really had a chance to sit down and talk about it with anyone. I'm trying to reach out to the people that I know, that I respect, to have some level of conversation that's higher than I can provide, quite frankly. Doug Duvall was a 37-year football coach, the legend of all legends in Baltimore coaching and Maryland coaching, the winningest head coach that I know of around these parts, and he's been my friend ever since I covered one of the state finals. I want to say 84, 5, 6, somewhere in there. So it's been 30-some-odd years. Welcome Doug Duvall on here. He's also the president of the Baltimore Touchdown Club, and I get to see him from time to time at football occasions around town. Doug, first things first, I mean, there's been a tragedy here at a local, coach and a community and a family and friends and all that it touches and all that it represents. And I know you coach for so many years and how that kind of thing is going to affect the campus of a high school, of a community. But then there's what's going on at College Park and sort of the opening up of these fissures of problems on how these kids are being coached and how they're being looked after. And, there's a lot of moving parts in this, but I know this is very near and dear to you. And, I know your phone's been ringing off the hook, not just this week, but really the last 2 months.
Yeah, anytime you lose a child, it's always a devastating event. When you lose them in sport, they're everybody's child once they start to play. So it impacts a lot of people. And it's just, it's one of the saddest things that can take place is when you lose somebody close to you. And when you lose somebody who's so young and so talented and such a great kid, it's a huge impact for a lot of people. And you just pray that it doesn't happen. It's the biggest fear when you coach is that something will happen to a child that you're coaching. So whether it's a catastrophic, like a spine injury.
Well, that's every play. You coached 37 years. How many times did you have to run onto a field very, very concerned about a kid? That, at least once or twice a year it happens, right?
It does. I mean, it's a part of the game that you wish didn't happen, but it does, and it does make a difference with your own child or a child from the other team. Anytime somebody goes down, there's always that hand that grips your heart, and you just worry about it. So, and you hope nothing happens. And, the truth of it is the game itself is getting safer and safer and safer. I was fortunate in the years that I coached to not be around a catastrophic injury. And it was one I was always concerned about. And the older you get, I guess you become more compassionate or whatever once you become a father and then a grandfather. You view it differently than when you're a young coach. When I was a young coach, it was the old damn the torpedoes full speed ahead. Let's go, after it. But as you get older, you get a better sense of what's the game about? What are we trying to do? And I think that's become more of the lesson of what we're trying to do in football today. I mean, I don't think the game's ever been safer than it is today.
Well, and I was going to ask you, what was your first year coaching Wild Lake?
1973. I was at Maryland for a year before that as a graduate assistant, Ralph Regent and I.
Well, I would just think, Coach, is a different time with hazing and taping kids to goalposts and stuff that would not happen now. And I'm going to tell Coach Billick this. I haven't talked to him yet this week, but we're going to talk, after the first game, but before the second game this week, as he goes down to Miami to call the game, that I watched on our trip out to Canton, Ohio for Ray Lewis's induction. Luke brought along the 2001 Super Bowl series, right? So the Denver game, Nashville, Oakland, and the Giants, the Super Bowl victory.
Right.
Every single series, Doug, there was a play where a quarterback was taken down by a Tony Siragusa, or a running back was hit, or a guy led with his head, or a guy piled on at the end of a play, or a guy tackled a guy a little too high, a little too low, whatever. like, just in watching the regular ebb and flow of football that we're all familiar with, we all saw the Super Bowl run, it all feels like 5 minutes ago, the game has changed dramatically at the NFL level, and that's just what we're seeing on the field. I can't imagine, Doug, a strength and conditioning coach in the modern era calling a kid fat and knocking food out of his way and spitting in the cup. And in an era where everything's being videotaped, including the president in the White House by his employees, a year later that stuff gets exposed, that in the era of Snapchat and Instagram and all of that, and the Me Too movement, right, and what's going on at Ohio State now, it's stunning to me that people still go with the old jockocracy and the way things used to be and the way things maybe feel like they still should be. And, Coach, I was never in the huddle with you. I know of your reputation in 4 decades and you're winning, and I don't know whether you would consider yourself closer to Tony Dungy or closer to Bobby Knight, right? But they both had a philosophy. I've read wooden books all of my life. I would be a better player for Tony Dungy than I would be for Bobby Knight, right? For that school of it. And I'm thinking that everybody's not going to be Tony Dungy, but you can't be sending kids home dead from the University of Maryland and thinking that this is not going to be the scandal from hell for everyone. And it has been.
Well, I lived through that whole Len Bias issue at the University of Maryland, which was heartbreaking and devastating. And it marks you for life when you coach. You talk about John Wooden and you talk about Tony Dungy, you talk about great human beings, and you get inspired by those guys to play. The world's changed. I love my high school coach. He was, everything. But I think in World War II, he was in artillery. And if we'd be practicing it, and God forbid it started thunder and lightning, the more thunder and lightning, the harder we were going to practice. But the world's changed, times have changed, and people, the players today are different. There's, you talk about people who can coach and teach. I mean, I have a short list that somebody were to call me from Maryland, and I don't know what's going to happen there. Everything, as soon as something bad happens, there's a lot of people pointing fingers, and, we were up to big 33 game practice when the news broke, and you're heartbroken, but you think, well, Jesus, this is going to be devastating for the people on the staff. People all point fingers, and Coach Durkin has got to be just just heartbroken and at wit's end right at this point in time, because you try and do what you think is right by what you've seen done before, but when something happens, it really makes you take time and examine your whole philosophy about life, about coaching, about all those things. And it's tough, just tough.
Well, and I think there's so much toughness built into the sport, Coach, right? Doug Duvall joining us here, by the way, 37 years, the head coach, Wild Lake, and state championships and all that decoration. And I'm just trying to get to how this happens in the modern era, like how the hazing part of this and the shaming and the belittling and all of that stuff that, when I was on the wrong side as a young man, my dad would say, I'll send your ass to Paris Island, put you in the Marines, that'll toughen you up. And, all of that doesn't really sort of fit the bill in the modern era. And when someone dies because of it, or there are allegations, and there are lawyers, and there are universities, and there are coaches, and there are educators, and there are parents, and questions, and media, and all of that stuff that goes into it, it just seems to me that there could be no dirty acts anymore. Maybe I'm just foolish.
No, I think you're right. I think that everything that takes place in the world today is captured, and you have to realize that when you go through the world. Never have we been under more of a microscope in coaching than we are today. And you find people, earlier in the conversation, you talked about the Ravens and the run and Tony Siragusa and Ray Lewis and all, and you got Brian Billick coaching them. And Brian's an intellect. He's a good human being. He's a bright guy.
Yes, he is.
The game of football,
confirm that.
Yeah, you want to have him revved up. You want him to play, but you want him to play under control. Now, granted, it's a big deal when one of the major motivational factors that come into play in the NFL is the dollar. I mean, there's no question about it. It is what it is. at that point in those young men's career, that's what pulls their trigger. That's what gets them going. But, Brian had a way of getting them revved up but going out to play under control. He had Ted Montesino. People don't know that name, but he was the guy that coached Ray Lewis. I mean, Ray was a great player, but nobody's naturally a great player. I mean, you got to be coached up. You got to be taught what to do, when to do it, how to do it, where to go, when to break down, where the launch point is for the football, all those things. And that really is what Brian Billett preached to his assistant coaches. He wanted them on an intellectual level, not an emotional level. And I think it comes all the way down to Little League coaching. I mean, there's not enough hours in the day to teach all the things you've got to teach, and it doesn't make any difference whether they're 7 or 27. It's just not enough time to get it all taught. There's so much to the game itself.
Doug Duvall is joining us. He is the legendary Maryland football coach from Wild Lake, and now, I don't want to say semi-retirement, but the president of the Baltimore Touchdown. It's everybody but Baltimore Touchdown Club does it, Doug.
Well, the real purpose of our club is to highlight high school football players in the state of Maryland, and the ones specifically in the Baltimore metropolitan area. We're sort of an umbrella organization that takes in Baltimore, Howard, Arundel, Carroll, Frederick, Washington, Harford County, Baltimore City, Baltimore County. So I think we have 86 schools that are part of our organization, and we fall under the State Coaches Association. And it's all about making football better in the state, making our coaches better coaches, making the game better and getting kids involved. And the bottom line is hopefully getting scholarship for kids. We've been fortunate over the years that we've really raised the game of football. Back in the mid-'80s, when we first started, we signed maybe 15 or 20 scholarships. Now we're up into the 100, and, kids are going to school and they realize what they've got to do in order to get there. When they're in the 9th grade, people start talking to them about academics and athletics and doing the right thing. And we've got a lot of young coaches involved in it who get to learn from the older coaches. And that's a huge part of it, having a mentor.
Yeah, you talk about DJ Durkin losing his job and his staff and all that, and where all of these kids come from is this pipeline of adults taking a leadership role in their lives, period, right? I mean, my dad was one of those people that coached Little League Baseball. I played Pop Warner football with Johnny Rollo. I was talking to some folks over at Al Seafood about that, and in the Eastwood Little League program and all the stuff that I did as a kid, and it was about parents who may or may not have been well-informed but in the modern era with the internet, and if you're a dad with a whistle who wants to do the right thing because you played football, you were inspired to play football, and you want to lead young men. I mean, I see Edwin Mulatalo coaching down in Southern Virginia now, right? Mike Flynn just took on a football program up in Massachusetts. So even these former Raven players are taking on programs and leading young men. I was funny because Flynn's wife was giving him a hard time saying he's molding the minds of these young men, like kidding around about it. But it is true. And when those people take the leadership role, when you turn your child over, you are turning them over to that in whatever sport, lacrosse, soccer, girls soccer, whatever it is. And I talked to Carl Delmont a lot about this at Fremont Mortgage because he runs a Celtic around here, and a lot of young people playing soccer. And we had Coach Billett going out and speaking to those people in a couple of months as well. But for the parents who do get involved in this, it isn't about keeping water away from your kids and having them run in wind sprints until they throw up and all of that stuff that in 1978 I did at Dundalk Elementary when I played football because that's the way the coaches were taught to do it.
Well,
they thought that's what Lombardi did, right? Literally, right?
Yeah, that was then, and this is now. People. The world's changed and the training modalities have changed, and people who have taken on the responsibility of coaching today can see the reward of it. I mean, never before have our kids needed to be involved in sport as much as they do today because of media. I mean, it's so easy for a child to come home, hop on the Xbox, hop on whatever the media that they have on their phone or whatever. And so,
wait till everybody has virtual. You'll never get them out of the house. I'm telling you. Once they get the goggles on, it's over.
A lot of life lessons learned out there on the field. People talk about it all the time. But it's true, and if you get the child out there and get them involved, have a positive experience, it's a life changer. It really is.
Doug Duvall is a good man. He's doing it at the Baltimore Touchdown Club. You can find him out there at BaltimoreTouchdownClub.com as well. You still getting to games. You still running around sideline and hang out at Wild Lake a couple times a year. What's keeping you busy around football, Doug?
Well, we do a game called the Big 33 where we play to take the best 33 players in Maryland, play the best 33 players in Pennsylvania.
Only been doing that, 100 years? How many years has that been going on?
Since 1985.
Is that all?
Here and there.
Yeah. Really?
Well,
so in my era, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, the game itself has been going on since the 30s, but
Okay.
Maryland's only been involved in it since 1985.
Okay.
And Reggie White at Milford Mill coached the team this year, and they actually beat Pennsylvania. So that's huge to go up and play, a state the size of Pennsylvania with the reputation they have in football, and to take the Maryland kids up there and really represent the state. And so it was a great job. It's great for football. People start looking at it and say, hey, listen, that's a great place to recruit. Maryland's got a lot of really, really good athletes. The coaches down in PG County have done a great job lately. In the old days, you had great athletes down there. But they couldn't recruit them academically. But the guys down there now have done such a great job with, having the kids academically prepared. DeLon Parrish, Eric Wade, all the coaches down there have done a great job. And so, statewide, our kids can compete. I think we rank number 3, believe it or not, in the country as far as number of kids playing recruitable that go on and play. There's a whole statistic to it, but I mean, Maryland.
Well, Doug, in your era, you were around when the Colts were still around, and then then it left for a dozen years. I would think that the level of football got a lot better here into the new century once the Ravens took over and kids wanted to grow up and be Ray Lewis or be Ed Reed or be whomever, right?
No doubt. I mean, the kids see it; they really love it. And then you have people like Brian Billick came in and would run clinics for the coaches. They just opened the doors for you. It was great. It was a good thing. And the Ravens have always done that and continue to do it today. So they're trying to bring all the Little League programs in the state of Maryland under one umbrella right now. There's a thing called the Ravens Rise that's run by a fellow, Matt Little, for the Ravens. And so they're going to try and, bring everybody together so we're all on the same page, heading the same direction. We're all going to go at the same time in the same place and do the same sort of thing. So it's good for football statewide.
He is Doug Duvall. You can find him out at the Baltimore Touchdown Club. Thanks for making time. I mean, I know it's never easy to talk about the aftermath of this, and, I'm not here to hold the panel show, and I certainly don't want to talk to every Tom, Dick, and Harry about opinions on this stuff, but for a guy like you that is so intimately involved and knowing all these people and have been literally your whole life, it must really take you aback when you hear of something that was so obviously preventable, right?
Well, it's just heartbreaking, they always say, that hindsight, but, it's one of those things that's so heartbreaking. I hate to talk about it, but you just, you never know. Hopefully, everybody will, learn a huge lesson from what just took place, and the university will grow from it, and the kids on the team will grow from it. That's what you've got to do in a tragedy like this. Just grow from it. It's the only way to go. It's just nothing else you can do. And the kids are resilient. The kids on the team. The first thing you want to do is go down and hug them up and say, "Listen, it's going to be okay. Keep going." But it's tough. They lost a teammate. It's hard to do. So, but they're kids are resilient. They'll come back. I don't know what'll happen at the University of Maryland. There's somebody said to me the other day, give me a short list. I said, my short list is Larry Johnson from Ohio State, who was a Maryland coach for years, and Brian Billick. And if you can't find somebody, hey, Brian would be a great college coach.
Wait till I tell him you're pinning him to the Maryland job, Doug. Stop. Come on.
He's one of the few people who go in there and really get it done. It's not going to be an easy task, So, but as I said, Larry Johnson's everybody's favorite in the state of Maryland. He's just such a compassionate and powerful guy, as far as reaching kids and doing that sort of.
Well, it's certainly, it's put a damper on everything around the program at this point, and, how they're handling it is being looked at under a microscope, and certainly I'm judging all of it. And I'm also waiting for Ravens season. Doug, you got any thoughts on the Ravens being 12-4 this year?
We had a talk years ago Joe Flacco first came from Delaware, and people go, I don't know if he's going to be any good or not. I said, you know what? He's going to be fine. Just takes a little bit of time. He's not lined up across from Westchester State when he's with the Ravens, and he came on. He did a great job. I think that, I think the Ravens are in good hands. I think the whole problem with NFL and all that stuff, it's starting to solve itself. People are starting to understand what professional sport is and how it works and what they do. So everything that happens, there's a little good and bad to it. Let's people examine exactly what takes place, and the players too. I think the players have grown from what's taken place in the last year or two. And as I said, I think the Ravens do a real good job with their players and PR and what they try and accomplish. They're a legitimate program, and they're bringing some young blood in, and like anything, sometimes it just you need a spark here and there and get rolling. They play hard. They're well coached, and I think they'll be good.
Coach Harbaugh's got him ready, and we'll be watching football all week long. Head coach Doug Duvall, 37 years at Wild Lake. Good to hear from you, Doug. I'm glad you're doing well. We'll send everybody out to the Baltimore Touchdown Club to catch up with you, and keep doing the good work out there with the kids. Well, we got football starting here in a couple weeks at every high school, right? So there's excitement everywhere.
Yep, underway. They're already at it, and most of them have scrimmaged once, and some kids, they're all excited about playing. The nice thing is just driving around from school to school, watching the kids, and I think that there's I'm a fan of high school football and the kids that play it.
I went to my first game in a long time last year. They put me in the Dundalk High Hall of Fame, and we have an all new high school. Completely, no part of it is the old high school. So I went back for the very first time, and it's unbelievable. And under the lights at Dundalk, I mean, a couple tears came to my eyes, Doug. I'm not going to lie to you. Going back to the old high school and seeing the kids out there and seeing the cheerleaders and seeing the fans in the stands. It's still a fun, easy, mostly free thing to do around town is go see high school football on a Friday night, right?
People should go do it. There's no other way to live. I'm telling you, it's great fun, and you get connected to it. You go and find out who the kid lives on your street and all that sort of stuff, and watch them play. I mean,
I was beaming with pride. I'm beaming. I'm sitting up straighter just talking about it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you always remember your high school, and I'll always remember seeing you down there at Wild Lake back in the mid-'80s. Who knew it was going to take 37 years?
You were just a kid,
Well, still am. I turn 50 next month. Doug, take care of yourself. Always great to catch up, man.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Doug Duvall, the man, the myth, the legend from Wild Lake, 37 years and the winningest coach in Maryland State history for high school football they're talking about. And I don't think Brian Billick's – Dwayne Starks is on my Facebook, on my timeline, saying, what makes Brian a good college coach? Brian's not taking the Maryland job. They just want Brian to take the Maryland job. I don't know. He said, don't pin me to that. Maybe Brian is taking – Brian's not taking the Maryland job. Oh, the things that happen on this program. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I'm getting called out by guys that picked off balls in Super Bowl 35. Dwayne, call in later in the week. We'll talk some football. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. We're in the buyatoyota.com audio vault. I'm putting all 19 chapters up of the book I wrote for my father back in 2006 on baseball. We aired that last week. I actually found the audio files that I recorded in August of 2006. Put those on the radio. They're now up in the buyatoyota.com audio vault. Morning newspaper reaches you each and every morning at 7 a.m. Sign up, subscribe. It's free. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life guaranteed. There's a Planet Fitness right around the corner. Perfect. Send the kids back to school. Join up at Planet Fitness. Get on this treadmill. Get yourself in shape. You'll feel good. That's what Planet Fitness does. Also, the Maryland Jockey Club and our friends at Laurel. The Maryland Million is running on October the 20th. Getting down to 2 months on that right now. They're racing down in Laurel this weekend. And, of course, the State Fair coming up as well. But they're at Laurel. Go to the front of WNST.net or the front of our morning newspaper and find the Maryland Jockey Club entries and Laurel. Get down to the new sports bar and check it out. It's awesome down at Laurel. If you haven't been there in a while, make sure you're doing that. Last but never least, any breaking news happens first on the WNST Tech Service. That is all brought to you by our friends at Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis will be here on Thursday between these football games this week to get you ready for the Miami game. And we talked a little Terps earlier in the week with Dennis as well. You can find him out at Coons Ford at Security Boulevard, where they sponsor our WNST tech service that comes to you whenever there's anything that's breaking news. I am Nestor Nasty at WNST.net. Finds me. I am easy to find. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Towson, Baltimore. We never stop talking Baltimore sports.